Ready when you are. So, just one.
I always do this. Welcome to episode 3 of the BTC podcast. Our guest today is Ian. He's the head of engineering. And I'd like Ian just to talk about himself, a brief introduction for you guys before we get into this.
Hi, thank you for the invite, Anthony.
You're welcome.
So, I'm Ian. I'm head of engineering for a local company. It's a relatively new role for me, as I've been self-employed for many years and taken many interim positions, both in the UK and abroad.
Yeah, bit of a hatchet man, some might say.
I've been known to be. I've been known to be when I've had to be.
The fixer.
Obviously, that kind of role is dictated by the owners, the board, whatever it may be. But obviously, when you've got a remit, it can be easier. In the real world of full-time positions, you don't really have a remit because of the flexibility you need.
Yeah. Well, this is a bit of a special podcast for me because, like me, Ian's a veteran, and we're not going to talk about that bit. You don't get any of that. What you get is post-military. How'd you end up in engineering?
So, my father was in the Merchant Navy, chief engineer. When he came out of there, he became a foreman in the steelworks.
Yeah.
So, obviously, engineering flows through my family.
Yeah.
And again, just conversations, what Dad does, so on and so forth. Old school engineers like to talk about their lives, which is always good, and especially when it's family. And so that kind of set the seeds, if you like. You know, I never wanted to be an astronaut. I never wanted to be, you know, a doctor or anything like that. As a kid, I suppose, like many kids where we didn't have the modern tech.
Yeah.
We used to build our own go-karts. We used to do things with our hands, whether it be with the family, whether it be with our mates or anything like that. So you started to learn at a young age, and you appreciated more because you built it yourself. So, you know, when the wheels fell off your go-kart going down the hill, it was your fault, you know, but you got up, you rubbed the blood away, and you carried on building to try to make it better. Yeah. So I think that was instilled into me at a very, very young age.
I think the world's a lot more precious about what kids are allowed to do. And you know, like much like yourself, I can remember putting bike chains on, and you know, like you say, you come off, you've hurt yourself. You know, the days when you get a bit older, the old pedaling pops and stuff like that, messing around with those, and just sort of tinkering. Right, there was no fear; you just got on with it.
And that's it, you know. And you learnt by your mistakes. Yeah. You know, and that is a big trait within the engineering fraternity. You know, no one's infallible. Yeah. But if you learn from the mistake, it's a life lesson. Yeah. You know, and engineering in general is a life lesson. It's a very brave man that says he knows everything.
Well, yeah, I'm always wary of engineers. There's two types of engineers I'm wary of. The ones who know it all and the ones who are missing digits.
Yes, and I hasten to add.
Yeah, that's it. Give them all a wiggle, right? That's the thing. But so Dad was an inspiration. Obviously, you know, like life pre-internet was the same for all of us. You had to go out and make your own fun and do your own fixing. So how did that progress for you after the military? You know, where did you start?
So my apprenticeship was actually I trained as a welder, a plater.
Oh wow, that's an old school name.
You know, old school name, big boy toys, thick material, stuff like that. So that's kind of what I fell back into. And it just sort of progressed from there. So I did that for several years. And then there was this whole, what does he do? Yeah. You know, why is he cleaner than me? Oh, he's a fitter, you know. And it's like, well, I actually want a bit of that. Yeah. Let me see what it's about. So, you know, conversations and conversation, sometimes you were seen as, get out of my way. And other times you would get some of the lads would go, oh well, we do this, and this. So I progressed that through my training, through learnings myself, and I went on to be a mechanical engineer that could still weld, which was a good thing. And then there was the newfangled multi-skilling, as it was seen back then, because as we all know, the older apprenticeships either used to be a mechanical or an electrical, and never the twain shall meet.
Yeah, I remember there being a divide, you know, and they, neither would talk to each other.
Exactly.
The electrical boys stayed over there, and the mechanical boys stayed over there. You know, and the electrical boys were precious and felt they knew more, and the mechanical boys were more shut up or I'm going to smash your face in.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but ultimately, you've got this whole divide, as you say, but I think businesses started realising they were paying a lot of money, and the needs to have people that could do everything within reason, within the same person, became greater. So you started seeing the trend of multi-skilling, and again, I started looking at that and thought, okay, so what do I need to become multi-skilled? So training courses, and we had some very good training courses. Some basic stuff as well, you know, fault finding, things like this. You know, I mean, as a mechanical engineer, you knew about electricity. You know, the thing with the electricity is we all learnt very quickly. You can't smell it, you can't see it, but you can feel it.
Yeah, that's right. We've all had a tingle, right?
And we've all had a tingle, so we all learn very quickly. Again, going back to, you know, you've learnt a lesson. But so that just sort of progressed through my career over a decade plus. And then from there, I moved into my first supervisory role.
Okay, tell me about that.
So I was offered a shift supervisor role with a bit of a twist because they wanted me to look after the production as well.
Right, so you did both.
So I did both. And the other caveat was it was a constant nights.
Oh.
Yeah. But I think like many things in engineering, when you're learning, and that's from apprenticeships up, you got to realise there are some sacrifices. You know, if you want to move on, if you want to learn, if you want to make a mark, you know, there are sacrifices. So I took the role. I did it for about 2.5 years, and it served its purpose that I needed it to. I became the engineering supervisor, so it introduced me into, should we say, backroom engineering. So where there's the budgets to think about, where there's the manpower planning, parts control, and things like that. As a supervisor, it starts very basic, but it starts laying the foundations for which me and other supervisors, managers, directors build their careers on.
Yes, that's the foundation of future Ian, isn't it? Where you are today, you know. And I think, I think one of the interesting things is having that exposure when you're younger to doing stuff around. You've sort of got a logical process you don't necessarily see in the younger generations. Because I kind of bracket it in. We're in a great position where we're around pre-internet, and then we're into it post-internet. So we've seen all of the technology in the factories come leaps and bounds, you know, and then they're continuing to improve. I mean, we're messing around with augmented reality and all sorts of things in here. And if you think even 10 years ago, that wasn't even on the table, you know. Even VR back then was clunky and blocky and awful, and now all of this stuff's coming together. So, and in my head, it's a progression of the going from single skilled to multi-skilled. You know, you've had that step, and now we're almost saying it's going to be triple skilled, because when you look at the younger guys, they're going to need to be mechanical, they're going to need to be electrical, but they're also going to have an understanding of PLCs, programming, you know, to a level. And the sort of, the cliche expression, well, I can fault find back to the inputs and outputs, isn't going to cover it in 5 years. They're going to have to be able to plug in some capacity, you know.
I mean, again, the technology leaps are a bonus, should we say,
Yeah.
compared to what we used to have. But the reality to that is how it's changing engineering status, as you said. You know, multi-skilled, yes, there'll always be the need for multi-skilled, but if you look at the technologies we use now, we're changing mechanical via, let's just say, servo drives and things like this now, which you don't have to touch anymore unless they break, because if some timing's slightly out, you're not moving a chain, you're not moving a sprocket anymore, you're moving a timing window within a PLC, within a drive or something like that. And I think the reality of the training on that is changing, certainly within modern apprenticeships as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, because there's a lot of interest around software, automation, PLC programming. So you're getting a lot more automation engineers, system engineers that can still do the electrical, because that's the basis behind it, but also they can swing a spanner on a mechanical machine as well. So triple training, you know, triple skilled, whatever you want to say it.
It needs a funky name in my eyes. We need to think of something. We need to think of something awesome, you know. But that's maybe not a now problem. But so supervisory and right, you know, in the past has teed it up. So you've obviously got a taste for management. What was the sort of moment? Because you could have stopped at supervisor, right? You could have said, okay, this is me. I'm happy here. Or you could have said, I don't like the people side of it, or the budgets or something. So something must have sort of clicked, and you've gone, right, I'm going to push this and see how far I can go.
It wasn't a case of not liking. I think it was having the appetite to want more.
Yeah.
You know, as a supervisor, you hit a level.
Yeah.
And then the manager takes over.
Yeah.
So although things like budgetary control you have to work with, you're not
controlling
the
it.
controller.
Yeah.
There's always somebody above you that's doing that to make sure that what you are saying and what you are doing is correct for the business requirement, not just the department need.
Yeah.
So I then went on to do a NEB certification in supervisory and management, and that kind of opened my eyes. The first one was very basic. The second one starts introducing you more to the people side and the business side. And then the third one, which takes a year, is a project where you encompass everything from manpower to budgets to an end result. And that sort of opened my eyes to, there's a lot more to engineering management than just having a list and going, right, you need to do that, you need to do that. I know the price of you doing that, that and that, you know. Because you're now, when you move into management, A, you're accountable.
Yeah.
You know, and B, the business will always want to see some kind of result.
Yeah.
You know, don't get me wrong, I failed along with the next guy. But the end result has been for me for everything that I've succeeded in, it's a win.
Yeah.
You know, we have to take wins where we can within engineering, because some days it can be thankless. But other days, you know, when you get that win and it's not your win, it's a team win.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people don't kind of pick up on in the modern day.
Would you say that there was anybody in particular who was inspiring to you on your management journey? And what was it about them that maybe inspired you, if there was a character?
So I've met a lot of great managers in my time, both engineering and operational. I would say, again, an ex-veteran who I worked with, a guy called Darren Booker, exceptional operations guy. And he kind of showed me how a business works behind the scene,
Yeah.
to all encompass engineering and operations, because engineering and operations do have to work closely,
Yeah.
hand in hand.
Even though the
'cause one-
perception on the shop floor sometimes is slightly different.
This divide of production and engineering,
It's very petty.
it is very petty. Each can have a detrimental impact to each other. You know, if production aren't doing what they're doing, or engineering aren't what they're doing, the synergy's not working. So I think the perception of engineers are, they could be prima donnas.
Yeah. I think there's some validity in that with some characters I've
Yes.
certainly come across.
Yeah.
I think.
You know, again, I think I already touched on, it's a brave man who would say they know everything. And there are guys that assume they've gone through all this training and everything else. You know, they know better. Now, working with the likes of Darren and another guy called Hugh, and seeing how the business runs behind engineering as well, is a key factor to understanding what you need to do to succeed. Engineering is about keeping assets running, keeping the site running, keeping it safe, but it's only a small part of when you look at a big commercial, small commercial, the principles are very similar.
Yeah.
You know,
I guess the skeleton
the
has
end-
to be the same, doesn't
Exactly. The end result is keeping the customer happy.
it? Yeah.
And you have all these cards stacked in their positions, and when they're all stacked right, the company thrives.
Yeah.
When it's broken in an area, you know, it's about how you bring that together. So, you know, you're not broken anymore, and you're all facing in the same direction, and you're getting a happy customer, happy workforce, happy departments. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult because of the characters you have within them.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, the sort of perception of interim management certainly is that they're all hatchet men, and they're brought in for, you know, the sole purpose of cut.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily true, but
No, but again, I'm quite an open person, especially in my interim career. You know, I've worked with so many mixed teams, and sometimes it's the team that is the problem. Other times it's the higher management that can be the problem. I think one of the things I learned very quickly from the likes of you, Darren, and other interims I've had exposure to, is be as open as honest as you can with the team. You know, one of my mentors through my apprenticeship actually said, you know, if ever you go into management, remember, you're only as good as your team. The team will make you look good, or they'll make you look bad.
yeah, and I think that's fair.
And I think it is. You know, if you've got a disgruntled team, it's not about going in and kicking the shit out of them. It's going in and understand what the issues are. I had a rather big team, and one of their problems were boots, believe it or not.
A simple problem, right?
Simple problem, but bear in mind, this was a team of about 60 guys, big site, lots of walking, things like this. But the company policy was, oh, you have to get this from our catalogue. And the boots within that, obviously,
We're poor. Yeah.
for the needs of the engineers. So one of the things I did, I went left field. I bought them all what they wanted based on their needs.
Yeah.
You know, some guys wanted a higher insole, some guys wanted external toe cap rather than internal one because he had a bad toe and this. So I understood what they wanted. I bought boots. Company, I won't say they weren't happy, but there was a couple of questions which, you know, I mean, again, I answered quite frankly and said, look,
In your traditional style. He's being very polite, by the way. It's more direct than this usually.
I can be, but in this particular instance, did what I need to do, and it was a win for me.
Yeah.
Because they didn't see me as an outsider then. I listened, I understood, and I helped.
Yeah.
That in itself wasn't about the engineering skills or anything like that. That's about the people.
Yeah, it's hearts and minds, isn't
exactly. Hearts and minds. Get the people on site, then you can start working on the engineering issues. Because they open up. If they see you as a human being and rather as, oh, he's top boss, he's not going to listen, not going to want to listen, he's going to come and hatchet us, as you've said. And it's not all about hatching. I have my moments. But ultimately, it's about hearts and minds, winning the teams over.
Yeah.
So.
And that's fair. Okay, so we've gone from supervisor to manager. You've had some good role models, and then the decision has been made. You're on the road, right? So you're going to do interim.
Mm-hmm.
So you're out there. You're out there in the big wide world. What was the thought process behind? Right, I'm going to go from, let's say, stable employment. Not that I believe there's such a thing anymore. There probably hasn't been for 30 years. But, you know, jobs for life don't exist anymore. Not like they used to in the old sense in factories. You know, you'd go in as a boy and you'd leave as the factory manager or whatever, you know. So what was the inspiration for going on the road and becoming interim?
To be honest, I think boredom.
It was fair. It's as good a motivation as any.
You know, so I worked with a very good company in a full-time position as their engineering manager stroke project manager. I worked between here and Holland. The site that I worked on in the UK had basically, I'd extended it to every boundary.
Yeah.
I'd even started going up.
Oh, Tokyo, the site. Started building upwards.
But we'd gone as far as I could.
Yeah.
So, and I literally woke up one day, went into work and said, I've gone as far as I can. I can't climb up the ladder because that business doesn't have a progression into...
There's nowhere left to go.
No. So it was like, right, with the knowledge I've got, how can I use that and impair that into other areas? And the thought of interim kind of excited me because I like to work quick, I like to make an impact, and that's what interim does.
Yeah.
So I put my notice in, and lo and behold, my first interim role was with the mother company.
Wow.
In Holland.
That's impressive. So the first jolly was to Holland then.
Yep.
And back in where you started.
Yeah.
Which is, why not, right? They know you, you know them, you know, and you can provide some level of benefit.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, so that's great. Funny stories about engineering then. So, you know, things that you come across that you can't believe, or do you know what? People wouldn't believe you when they hear you tell it. So, I'll start while you think, right? So I was working in a famous biscuit manufacturer. You've worked there too, right? And we were in the poly shop, and there was, so that's where you make the plastic guards and do all the plastic stuff. And the chappie that worked in there had a giant table saw, right? And, you know, you get the pushers to push the plastic through.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, he decided not to use the pusher, and he pushed it through and nicked the tip off of his little finger. So he'd come in and said, I need something. They put some string round it and then taped it off, and they're talking about, like, you know, getting him up to the hospital, got the tip of his finger, gone in the poly shop to get the tip of his finger, saw still running. And a guy called Lee, who was with me, said, how did you do that? And he went, I did this, and then cut the top off of this finger. Right? So we ended up getting him to the hospital with two tips of his fingers in a plastic bag, right, on ice. And we'd had to go to the canteen to get ice from the ice machine. Yeah, to get him.
I think I've been lucky enough to not see many major injuries.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. But much the same, I've seen somebody take the tip of their fingers off with a guillotine.
Oh. Was it a manual? Did they jump on the pedal, or was it hydraulic?
This was a big ass machine, and
I shouldn't
again,
laugh, really.
light guards had failed and various other bits and pieces, and somebody thought it would be acceptable just to put a sign up saying "broken, don't use."
Yeah.
I remember it being a Saturday morning, and those that knew. Those that didn't.
Yeah, of course.
Because over a period of time, the sticky tape which was holding this on the front of the machine had gone, and the sign had gone.
Yeah.
I only found out about it on that particular day after the event. At the time, I wasn't a manager or anything like this, but I remember I was actually inside a plenum unit that we used to build, and I was welding away, and I heard the guillotine start up. It was an old one with a big rotational, and I'm welding away, and I've got a guy the other side of this, and he shouts, he went, "What's that noise?" And I stopped, and that's the guillotine, as we tried to get out of basically these tunnels that we were making. And by the time we got there, the clunk had gone off, and the lad stood there like a statue. And it's like, "You okay?" "I'm not sure." His hand's still in position. I kind of walks around the corner. You got claret coming down the back end of the machine, and of course there's
the finger,
tips of his fingers. And the moment we kind of said, "Yep, you've lost the tips of your fingers," he went down like a bag of spuds. You know, but again, much the same. But health and safety these days wouldn't allow it. You know, your isolation of the machine, proper guard, blah, 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 blah. But again, that's probably the only thing where I've ever seen the damage. I did see a manager lean over a lathe with his tie.
Oh.
And rightly so, the engineer actually drop kicked him.
Oh, fair play. Saved his life.
Yeah,
100%.
Very, very much so. You know, and again, to this day, even as a senior manager, I don't wear a tie.
Yeah.
And if I'm ever challenged, I explain why. You know, ties are for pretty boys.
Yeah.
Or the boardroom, if you need to. They're not for an engineering shop or anything like that, especially when you've got rotational machinery.
Job interview or court case, right? That's where my head's at.
And, hopefully not the court caused by the tie. Yeah. But ultimately, you know, I've been quite lucky not to see that. I think one of the worst ones was a CNC machine, which datumed when it shouldn't have done. And the operator literally went along here, and his hand fell back with the gap.
Yeah.
And again, that was traumatic for everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, in my career, I've seen.
It's not great for him either.
Not so good for him. And long and short of it was, there was a fault on the machine that nobody knew about, but we saved him. We saved his hand. Everything else. And to this day, a lad called John, still in the machining game, still enjoying it. So,
nice.
You know what? All's well that ends well, so to speak.
Yeah. Did he get all the articulation back as well?
Yeah, got everything back. Spent a lot of time in surgery.
Yeah.
But did get it all back. You know, and again, at the time, no pain for him because these I think it was a hard inch machine or whatever. Super sharp tooling. It was a new machine, hence why we didn't realise it had the fault on it. But he'd opened the guard, went in, and the machine datumed when it shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
When he's had his hand by the turret. If I think about some of the funny shit that used to go on in various places, me myself during my apprenticeship. Back then, apprentices were seen as the lowest of the low.
Yeah, that's fair.
In some people's eyes, and this is back in the time where, you know, we used to have to make the tea.
Yeah,
and
I think there's some merit in that, though. You know, you know, I'm not saying all the time, but I think there's rightly so a progression. I think if it's managed right, so that you shouldn't be looked at as pond scum.
But again, you know, I'm going back to old school engineering shops where You know, you didn't know anything until you were taught it. There were those that didn't want to teach you it, but, you know, because you were in a training program, and you shouldn't get involved with real engineering until you know something about it. But the only way to learn is to ask.
Yeah.
And we had this one particular machinist, bit of an arsehole actually, when I think about it. And I remember it was my turn with a couple of the other guys, and I'm making tea for like 80 people.
Yeah.
You know, and I did it in this particular cup. He comes in, who made my tea? I make my own tea. Made a massive song and dance about it, and basically threw his tea at me.
I got 2 questions. Did you make him a brew ever again after that, and did you rim it?
So, no, I did one better.
Go
I
on.
did make tea for him, but before I did that, I got his cup. I drilled a hole in the bottom of it. I screwed it to the bench and filled it. As it turned out, it was quite a sentimental cup for him.
Right.
But rather than explain that, you know, he was just being a dickhead. So he got his cup of tea, and when he picked it up, he lost the handle, and yeah. But great thing about it is he didn't mess with me again.
Yeah.
You know, and that's me as a sort of 16, 17-year-old. So I kind of already had my first insights of what engineering could entail.
I always think about apprentices now and sort of way back when, as it were. So one of my introductions was to oxyacetylene, and the guy that was talking to us about it got a small sandwich bag, filled it with oxyacetylene, tied some blue roll to it, let it float, and lit the blue roll outside. This was outside, and his idea was, right, let me show you how dangerous this is. We'll watch this go bang outside. And he lit it, and of course it went bang, and it was the best thing that any of us had seen, right? So of course he's gone for his tea break. The next thing, one of the lads has filled a bin bag full of oxyacetylene, tied some blue roll to it. This is in the shop, right? And thankfully, I mean, it was a huge sort of roof on this place, and he's lit it, and it exploded, and it burst the windows and bounced the panels on the roof, and there was dust and crap everywhere, right? And everybody came running in the workshop because it was a huge bang, right? And then it became this sort of, it was a big deal, right? And there was a big lecture, and then what happened was it became a game, right? So people were then exploding stuff under apprentices' benches, you know, hiding these bags, you know, setting fire to them and causing problems. But like, I think one of my favourite apprentice stories. So I was a supervisor at said biscuit factory, and I'm sat in my office, and it has the main day shop, glass fronted windows, and I'm sat there and I'm looking at paperwork for the guys to do some PMs, and I hear like this, right? And look up like, what was that? Look back down again. The other way. I'm like, what is this? Open the door, and they've got the apprentice, lad called Ross, and they've jammed a piece of box section through his, you know, it's back when you had to wear the blue overalls, right? Yeah. And they've jammed a piece of box section through his overalls, and they're flying him up and down the workshop on the gantry crane. And like, what the hell are you doing? Well, he was being cheeky, right? Yeah. So they've set about him, and they're flying him round because they knew he was scared of heights, right? So, but obviously now that had never in a million years happened because, well, everybody would be getting fired, right? So,
yeah.
You know,
I mean, there used to be a lot of
shenanigans,
what
right?
do you want to call it? Shenanigans, hijinks, anything like that. You know, I mean, again, I've seen people welding external toe tactors to benches and things like that.
Tech screwing toolboxes shut.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I myself, I worked with an Italian company as I was coming up the ranks, and we had this one Italian turn up, and again, he was so precious about his toolbox. It was almost an obsession, and every time and he used to leave it in the places where he shouldn't do. So you tried moving it, you moved it out the way, and he would just go mental. Typical, you know.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And so one day, a lot of us had just had enough of it. So we put it on a pallet. We put it up onto an RSJ about 30 feet in the air. And we secured it up there, and that was that. And we had all day entertainment of him trying to find his box. All he had to do was look up, but he was just so focused on being pissed off. You know. So we've all done that sort of thing. And I think it's a good thing to have a sense of humour in engineering.
You need it.
Most certainly.
And thick skin.
You know? And I mean, going back to your original and my sort of stories about people having accidents, we can sit and we can laugh about it, but I think the reality to it is now in a more modern environment, we are more concentrated on the health and safety side, which isn't a bad thing.
No,
it
no.
keeps people safe, but still doesn't mean to say you can't have a bit of fun.
No, I think fun's important.
You know,
because you're right. You have to have a sense of humour, because the reality of the trade is it can be a real difficult. You know, it's long hours, it's dirty work,
it's
and by the
stressful.
time people start talking to you, they're already angry, right?
Exactly.
They're not necessarily angry at you.
No.
They're angry at the situation.
Yeah.
And they project that onto you, don't they?
Yeah,
you know,
because when something breaks, it's instantly your fault, or it's now your problem.
Yeah.
All they want is the response from whether it be the engineer, the team, the manager, whatever it may be, of don't worry, we've got this, we'll fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. So from a career perspective, what would you say if you had to pick a defining moment, something that sticks with you forever, about like that's brought you to now, Ian? You know,
memorable. I think I've got lots of memories within engineering. Defining, probably not just one. You know, I mean, again, when you decide to build a career through engineering, there's lots of moments that bring it to a pinnacle.
yeah,
I don't believe I'm at my pinnacle at the moment, so I'm still having those moments. If I think about some of the stupidity within it, you know, I mean, I can talk about the guy we set up in Korea with a transvestite, if you really wanted to go down there. I can talk about the definition of somebody that's come through the ranks as an engineer and honed their abilities to those that have come straight out of uni. Brilliant on paper, not so good. I've had a CEO's son's friend, or whatever it may have been, turn up, and he wanted more practical. I set him a task. I went to a meeting, came back and found a machine in 1,000 bits. When the reality was, read the manual on this particular thing, take the gearbox out. So he decided not to take it out the way the manufacturers had stated, or I expected, and taken out through the front, and actually cost an awful lot of money to get German engineers back in to set the machine up the way it's supposed to be. So there's lots of moments within engineering I think I've had. I think one of the funny things, again, working in Korea, I think we've all seen the picture of the forklifts, right, where you've got a forklift lifting a forklift.
yeah.
I've actually seen that in real life.
Oh wow,
I've seen that in real life with 3 forklifts.
3.
3 forklifts.
How big was the bottom one? Was it like a
Oh,
Manitou?
you know,
Huge.
7, 8, 9, 10 ton,
Wow.
followed by another one, just to get this vessel higher, rather than, you know. But
Let's talk about your favourite hobby, being a petrol head.
Yeah, again, I think it's a generation thing. It's also, obviously, it's a hands-on thing. So we've known each other quite a while. You know, I am heavily into my cars. I think the progression of where I started in cars as an apprentice going up has reflected on my wages, as it always does. But you know, not a big drinker. I do smoke.
Yeah.
But I do like my cars, and I think they reflect my personality.
I think that's fair.
So, you know,
Like your current car's covered in rainbows.
you wished. You wished. And it's a rainbow you could never taste, as they say. But you know, pride aside,
Yeah.
yeah, it's for me. It's also an escapism.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in a stressful role where everybody wants a piece of you, where you've got to make impacts, where you've got to succeed, and where you've got to make sure that you're doing the right thing, that comes with stress. So part of my stress relief is of a weekend, you know, I have a bit of a regime, clean my car, then go thrash the shit out of it.
Lovely.
You know, in the right places, of course, officer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
all safe, legal, and above board.
yeah. But again, they are an escapism for me,
Yeah.
as well as something that I can tinker with as well. Not so much the newer ones, but as you know, I've had Jeeps which I've put V8 engines in. I've built race cars and done all sorts of things. So inadvertently, a little bit of engineering, be it motor mechanics, but we won't belittle that today.
I think that's the beauty of the trade, though, isn't it? You can almost turn your hand to anything. You know, I know that we can. There isn't much you can't really fix or or achieve.
Engineering fundamentals don't change, regardless of what it's on, whether it's on a machine, whether it's on a vehicle, or whether it's on a plane or anything. You know, the processes are what the processes are. Something that rotates. It requires bearings. It requires maintenance. You know, chain's a chain, sprocket's a sprocket, gear's a gear, regardless of what part of the machine it's in, whether it be a motor vehicle, as I say, a plane, a machine, or whatever it may be.
I'm glad you mentioned fundamentals, because I'm not somebody who's easily offended, right? And I saw a video that offended me greatly the other day, and it was an engineer talking to people about how to dot punch a mark on a plate of steel. And we'll see if we can find a clip to put it up there for you with a vernier caliper. I'm not joking, right? So you know your internal jaws for measuring on the back of the vernier. So they've placed them where they want the dot, and then they've whacked the front with a hammer.
Again, you see this all over YouTube and everything now. There's the guy builds motorbikes and cuts raw material out of sheet and everything else, which again, great. But the way he marks it up, he uses a set of verniers as a scriber. You know, and again,
it's painful. It kills me inside.
From a purist point of view, 100%. You know, whether they do it intentionally just to piss off people, or whether it's the fact that they genuinely don't know, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Are they doing it just for shits and giggles?
Yeah, clickbait almost. Just
but when you see that sort of thing, and they're going back to engineering standards, you've got apprentices coming through the ranks that are coming out of school. They know nothing other than school. They know what they've either read or been told about engineering. And when they see stuff like that, does that become something that they think is the norm?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a concern. You know, that's because the kids are quite integrated into the internet. They know no different. You know, they're generationally, it's been there from before they were born now. So, which is a scary prospect when you think about it. So, I guess that kind of leads me into the last bit of the podcast, and that's, what's your advice for a young person, an up and comer, someone who might be watching this thinking, how do I get into what these guys are doing? Or, you know, this sounds like it's for me. What would you say? Let's pretend they know no engineers, they've got no engineering family, they're just interested.
I think the first thing is, don't believe everything you're told. Make your own mind. Make your own decisions. If you're going to get into engineering, understand what you're getting into.
Yeah.
You know,
that's fair.
There's a lot of literature out there which will explain what engineering does. You know, we've just said fundamentals. What are engineering fundamentals, and how they should be used? So there's an awful lot of literature out there. Not YouTube, not TikTok, and not the dickheads trying to show you the wrong way of doing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
think about what areas you want to be. You know, the
I mean,
word
like
engineer.
it's loose,
Yeah,
isn't it?
but the word engineer this day is battered around for thousands. You know, we've got our dustmen. They're classed as refuge engineers.
Yeah.
You know, software engineers, computer engineers. You know, understand what part of engineering you want to go into. We have manufacturing engineering. We've discussed about, you know, AI engineering and things like this. So rather than just think, I want to be an engineer, what you want to be,
Nail it.
nail it down to
Yeah.
that particular area and see what the training curriculums are out there.
Yeah.
Whether it be privately, colleges, universities, whatever it may be. So do your homework, because when you go into apprenticeship, you're going to have a lot of it, you know. And I think the last thing anybody wants when they're in training is realise, actually, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
Because it's wasted a lot of time, not only theirs but other people's, whereas they could have put that time and effort into something that they truly understood.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think as well is maybe get several opinions, because, you know, for example, some contractors are very quick to sell, oh, this is fantastic, you make loads of money, this, that and the other. But what they're not doing is talking about the other side of the coin. It's hard work, it's long hours, and you have to be good enough to achieve that.
Exactly. Well, we talked about sacrifices earlier.
Yeah.
You know, and again, they need to understand what they're going to give up. You know, when they're given their coursework to do at night, or their for want of a better word, their homework or their assignments, whatever you want to call them, you know, these are lads that are used to playing on their Xbox all night.
Yeah.
You know, that's the generation we're in. But that said, that isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I myself have quite a few up and coming stars actually through apprenticeship programs, and they have made those sacrifices. I then have first years that are finding this transition difficult. So again, one of the other things for me is, when they have decided to go into the apprenticeship, don't be afraid to ask the questions. No question is stupid if you don't know the answer, and if you've got the right mentor or a bit of a network of more mature apprentices or anything like that, ask the questions so you understand truly what you're getting into.
Absolutely. No, I think that's really great, and I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today and sharing your wisdom and sort of putting it out there for people to get a feel for what it's like at the dizzy heights of the top and how you achieve that. And, you know, hopefully, you know, somebody out there finds some insight from this and get some value. You know, feel free to shoot us a message or something if you've got some questions. We're always open to help people, you know, and we want to progress this podcast to share as much as we can to bring people on board. So I'd like to say, on behalf of myself and Ian, you know, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this and being involved. And hopefully we'll catch you on the next podcast.